Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And Stephanie, you just confessed to me before we were on air that you love potatoes.
I love potatoes. You know, they're not such a bad vegetable, really. It's what we do with them that makes them fattening and kind of unhealthy sometimes. My big naughty food, I must say, is potato chips.
Right.
Really bad. Or just anything deep fried. You know, like French fries are good too, but potato chips, it's terrible. Yeah.
I would say my favorite one, and one that I seldom get in Taiwan, is a big baked potato, like a jacket potato.
Yes.
Yeah, because the potatoes here aren't quite big enough to give them the full treatment.
Can I recommend a place for you?
Please do.
It's the only place I've had that kind of potato. Not as big as America or Great Britain, but baked very well with salt on the on the outside with butter. That would be Texas Roadhouse.
I've been there and I've had that potato actually.
It's as close as it gets here.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. I mean, in the UK, we have wagons in the street and you can just buy one with, you know, maybe some beans, bacon, cheese, coleslaw, whatever you want on it. So, today's article is all about potatoes. We're not just going to talk about eating them. We're actually going to talk about their history and the important effect that potatoes have had on our history.
True.
So let's read through and learn about the potato's tale. My name is Toby and I'm a potato. People know me by a lot of different names. I get called Spud, Tater, Earth Apple, and even Solanum tuberosum by fancy folks with too much education. I consider myself pretty common and humble, but my family and I have seen a lot. Our story begins thousands of years ago, and since then, we've changed the world. It all started in the Andes Mountains in ancient Peru. It's estimated that people there have been growing my ancestors for around 10,000 years. There's no doubt that they were a major staple for the Inca Empire. Potatoes are pretty tough, and we can grow in fairly chilly areas such as the Andes, which meant people could rely on my forebears as food when the maize crop failed. This helped the Inca Empire grow, but we potatoes were just getting started. When the Spanish showed up in the 16th century, they liked the look of my family, so they brought them back to Europe. At first, the Europeans didn't want to consume them at all. This makes sense, since our leaves are toxic, as is our skin if it's exposed to light. They used my relatives to decorate their gardens instead, but it wasn't long before they recognized their virtues as a food. Let me just take a moment to explain our nutritional value. Potatoes contain plenty of vitamin C and vitamin B6, though some of this disappears when we're cooked. There's not a lot of protein in us, but there's almost no fat, and we're great at satisfying hunger. What makes us so appealing as a food crop is that we're relatively easy to grow and can adapt well to a variety of climates. Once the Europeans realized this, my predecessors were ready for the big time. All right, so the article begins with the introduction. My name is Toby and I'm a potato, which is one of the more unusual introductions to an article you will read with one of our English Digest articles. We normally tell you about stuff, and this one is a potato discussing his history. If potatoes could talk, this is what they say. Now, potatoes, as we see here, are given lots of different names. They are known by many different names. So Spud is one.
Hey, that's my dad's word. You know, he was very poor growing up, and his family actually worked in the fields harvesting potatoes, but they never harvested potatoes. They harvested spuds.
Yes, I've heard that spud can also be a word for a different variety of potato. I'm never sure. It's
Not
one
for
of those,
Dad, yeah.
It's one of those words that gets kind of lost in the mists of time, and no one's quite sure where it comes from. Tater is another one that's more easy to see. It's obviously potato, tater. tater kind
Tater
of...
tot is a brand. Here they call him, let's say call it shucho. It's a potato football, kind of potato ball. You can get those at a pizza place here.
Okay, yeah, they kind of, they deep fry them a bit, don't they?
Oh, they're good.
Or
yeah, they're crispy.
Yeah. Earth apple, that's another potato
I haven't heard
name.
that one.
I think that's partly translated from the French, the pomme de terre, which means apple of the earth. It's another name that's out there. I looked up a few others to find names for this. And the fancy name is Solanum tuberosum. That's the Latin sort of family species genus name for these vegetables. And we kind of joke here in the article that this is a name given by fancy folks.
Right.
Someone who is fancy is kind of... You can use it to mean sophisticated, of a higher quality, although in the article we're kind of using it in a sarcastic way. Like, only someone who's a little bit too fancy would use the Latin names for vegetables.
They want to show off how smart they are.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're folks, which just means people, basically.
Right. Yeah, we use folks a lot, actually. And then Toby continues on. He considers himself pretty humble, kind of common. Humble can mean where you don't brag about what you can do, but it can also mean, you're not very expensive. Everybody can afford you. We might say, oh, she lives in a humble home, or she's from a humble family. Typically, it refers to someone who doesn't have a lot of money. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Potatoes aren't expensive.
No, thank goodness.
Yeah. They're very, very regular, common vegetables. You see them in any supermarket. Although, as our article says, but my family, Toby's family, and I, they have seen a lot. Okay. So they're kind of referring to their history here. It says our story, that's the sort of story of potatoes and their journey around the world, begins thousands of years ago. And since then, and that's what the whole article is about, we've changed the world.
Truly. In times when we've had really a lot of hunger, maybe some starvation has occurred because of disease or war, potatoes have often helped people survive.
Yep.
Thank goodness for the potato. And we've done fun things to it since then. So let's look at the history behind the common potato. It all started in the Andes Mountains in ancient Peru. So Andes Mountains are a range of mountains that are found in the country of Peru. Here we're talking about Peru long, long ago. We're using that word ancient.
Yep, and it's estimated that people there have been growing my ancestors, so again, the potato talking, for around 10,000 years. We use estimated here. An estimate is a guess. It's maybe based on some scientific evidence and a few facts, but we don't exactly know for sure. It's hard to say when potatoes started appearing because people didn't write stuff down so much in those days, or the records have been lost, so it is hard to say when potatoes first started appearing, but it's estimated or guessed that people have been growing my ancestors, so this is the potatoes' ancestors.
Right.
And of course, they, like anything 10,000 years ago, it was probably a little different. The vegetable could have been smaller, slightly different color, slightly different shape or taste. We'll kind of see in day 2 how people have changed what potatoes are by kind of crossbreeding different plants and changing them to make them bigger or tastier or so on. So the first kind of ancient potatoes were grown around 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, if you see that word ancestors, guys, it just means people in your family that came before you. We'll often ask somebody, hey, where are your ancestors from? My ancestors are a mix of Germans, Irish, English. So that's what ancestors are. We're going to see a word in the same paragraph that means the same thing, our forebears. So the potatoes' ancestors have been around for quite a while. They started out in ancient Peru. I've never been to Peru. Have you?
No, not even been to South America.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't either. Although my sister and brother have both been there.
Cool.
As missionaries. But yeah, kind of fun. It's pretty if you get a chance. We definitely recommend going. Now, it says here there's no doubt, so we're pretty sure about this, that they were a major staple for the Inca Empire, a group of people, a civilization that lived long ago. They no longer exist. And if you're a staple, Notice here it's a P, not a B, guys. I'm sure most of you have heard of the word stable, which is an adjective. It just means it's pretty consistent. It doesn't change. Staple means a type of food that people primarily subsist on when times are hard, especially.
Yeah, it's the sort of things that people eat all the time. So in Taiwan, rice, noodles, soybean vegetables, those things.
South America, it would be beans. They love beans,
Potatoes, bread, wheat, barley, those kind of things. Yeah, and they were for the Inca Empire, and empire is a kingdom that has sort of grown to control other territories, so it spreads across numerous lands. So potatoes, we see, are pretty tough, and remember, first person, the potato is talking, can grow in fairly chilly areas, such as the Andes. Fairly means kind of, not really, really cold, but pretty chilly. Quite cold, in other words.
Yeah, the state that produces the most potatoes in America is Idaho, and it's really cold in the winter. I live in a warmer state, Arizona. I did. And we can't grow potatoes. So, yeah, it can put up with some snow, you could say.
It's actually quite useful. We'll see that in day 2 as well. And because they could grow in all these different areas, including cold places, people could rely on my forebears, which, as Stephanie said, is ancestors, when the maize crop failed. Maize is corn, basically. It's the same stuff, slightly different species, I think, but basically corn. And corn is more vulnerable to if the weather is bad, if there's too much rain or not enough rain or a bit of snow or something like that. So if the maize crop fails, the potatoes will make sure people don't grow hungry.
Yeah. My second favorite thing, besides potatoes, is the corn, of course. I also like corn chips, which is kind of a potato chip made out of maize or corn. Those are very good. They use a lot of maize in the Spanish cuisine, Mexican cuisine, which I love. It says here that this helped the Inca Empire grow, but we potatoes were just getting started. So, it's a pretty hardy or pretty strong crop that can be grown, thank goodness, because we sure like it. We're going to move on to the next paragraph, but before we do that, guys, we're going to take a few minutes to listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们这2天呢要来看到这个马铃薯的这个历史。那么它以第一人称的方式来做叙述，所以在第一段你会看到它都用第一人称的 I 来做叙述。首先来看到呢，在第一段中间的句子提到 I consider myself pretty common and humble, but my family and I have seen a lot. 在这里首先要注意的是 consider 的用法。Consider 是动词，你认为后面加形容词或名词，所以他说我认为自己非常的普通，而且 humble 在这里呢，原本呢是有身份地位非常的低下或者是卑微的意思。举例来说 He is of humble birth 代表着呢就是他出身卑微。那么常用的意思还有非常谦逊或者是谦恭的意思。举个例子来说 Many famous people are surprisingly humble 指的呢就是许多知名的人士都出奇的非常的谦逊。那么虽然自己呢觉得普通不起眼，但是我的族人却已看遍了这个世界。就从这里开始来介绍马铃薯的历史。在第二段呢的第二句提到 It's estimated that people there have been growing my ancestors for around 10,000 years. 在这里讲到据估计，我们的句子开头就可以说 It's estimated that 来加子句。据估计呢，在那里的人们，那么指的呢，就是在秘鲁的安第斯山脉，他们种植我们的祖先已经有10000年了。在这里的祖宗或祖先，我们可以用 ancestor 这个字。在后面的句子，你还会看到 forebear 也是祖先、祖宗的意思，或者是 forefather 也是有同样的意思。举个例子来说，他出身名门，当然他就是来自于非常高贵的祖宗，我们就可以说 He is sprung from noble ancestors。接着 第二段的倒数第二个句子提到 Potatoes are pretty tough and we can grow in fairly chilly areas such as the Andes, which meant people could rely on my forebears as food when the maize crop failed. 在这里提到了这个马铃薯呢是非常的强壮，用了形容词 tough 这个字。那么呢可以生长在非常寒冷的区域，像是安第斯山脉。在这里打了一个逗号，用 which 来代替前面句子所说的内容，因为可以生长在非常寒冷的地区，所以它意味着呢，人们可以 rely on my forebears， 那么人们可以倚仗我的祖先来当作是食物，尤其是当这主要的玉蜀黍的这样作物欠收的时候，在这里的玉蜀黍我们就用 maize 这个字来代表。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hiya guys, welcome back. So we just heard how the potatoes' ancestors got started in South America, helping the Inca Empire grow. But that's kind of like they're starting out, small business. It's time to go international.
Or sometimes we use the phrase, they're small potatoes, which means they're kind of a small group, not really big or popular.
Not important.
Yeah, that company's small potatoes. They're not much of a competition for us.
Yeah, but they're about to get big because if you know your history, you will know that the Spanish kind of found and discovered South America, found that, of course, there were people living there, but the Europeans find it and they show up in the 16th century and they like the look of these potatoes. Presumably they're given them as food by locals or they find them.
Yeah.
And so they decide they brought them back to Europe. So amongst all the silver, the gold, all these other things they find, they bring back potatoes. But it doesn't start off like obviously well.
No, which is true of a lot of new foods. It takes you a little while to get used to it. Chocolate came back from that area.
Of course, yeah.
But until we added sugar, who wants to eat, bitter chocolate? Well, at first the Europeans, they weren't that excited about the potato. They didn't want to consume them at all. This word consume is used when we either take something in and eat it or just use it till it's gone. We consume a lot of gas, energy, things like that. This makes sense, it says, since our leaves are toxic, as is our skin if it's exposed to light. If something makes sense, guys, it's logical. Sometimes we'll say, you're not making any sense. What you're saying just doesn't have any basis in logic or even fact. So it did make sense that they didn't eat it immediately because maybe they were cooking the leaves back then.
Yeah, and the leaves toxic.
They have poison. If you see that word toxic, don't put something that's toxic in your mouth.
Yeah, we often see in the news things like toxic chemicals that have been found in products. It's stuff that if you put it in your body, it will start to damage your cells, damage your organs and cause problems. So the leaves of potatoes are toxic and skin can be. Now it says when it's exposed to light, that means when a lot of light is put on the potato. Now don't worry too much because you can put a potato in a light and it won't immediately become poisonous. But if you leave it out there for too long, if the skin starts to go green, that's when it's like you shouldn't really, that's the bit you need to cut off. So
and I love to eat the skin of potatoes because that's good fiber.
Yes, it is good. So don't worry about eating any potatoes that have been in the light. It has to actually be exposed to a great deal of natural light before the skin becomes toxic as well. But obviously, the Spanish and the people in Europe, they don't know this, so they're probably poisoning themselves eating potato leaves or potatoes that have been exposed to light for too long. So instead of eating them, they used my relatives to decorate gardens instead.
Interesting. I would never think of a potato as decorative, pretty, something that makes your house or garden looks better. That's kind of interesting. Your relatives, of course, are family members and they're still alive with you. Remember, ancestors came before you. Your relatives are your family members that you get together with and, have meals. Your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, those are your relatives too.
Yep, and relatives by marriage as well. They count as relatives.
Yeah,
so the potatoes relatives, he means the potatoes that were around in that time.
Yeah.
Toby, our narrator. But it wasn't long before they, that's the Spanish and the other Europeans, recognized their virtues, that's the virtues of potatoes, as food. Something's virtues are its good qualities, the things that make it special, make it attractive, make it very good for fitting a particular purpose. So they thought, okay, we don't want to eat these, we'll plant them, we'll make them, maybe they look nice and leafy in a garden, and suddenly, or eventually, people figure out, wait a minute, these do make excellent food. We've got to start eating them and treating them differently.
Yeah, they're quite tasty, actually.
Yeah.
You know, even if I don't put the butter and sour cream on it, I still enjoy a potato. I try not to eat them so much if I'm dieting, trying to lose weight. But, yeah, they're very, very healthy for you. Let's take a look at that last paragraph, guys. It says, let me just take a moment to explain our nutritional value. Good old Toby is going to tell us why he is nutritious to eat. Nutritional, of course, is an adjective form of the word nutrition. And all of our bodies need things like vitamins and minerals and things that keep our body healthy. Here, let's take a look at what they have. Potatoes contain plenty of vitamin C. I hadn't thought of that. And vitamin B6. So that's pretty great. Though some of this disappears when we're cooked, that's true of any vegetable.
That is true, yes.
If you cook a vegetable, you're going to lose some of its nutritional value.
Toby also adds there's not a lot of protein in us, but there's almost no fat. Okay, protein, though proteins are kind of like the job doers in our body. It's the stuff that builds muscles, it fixes hair, it does millions of different jobs. It takes around information in our body. There are thousands and thousands of proteins. When we talk about protein and food, we talk about the protein our body can't make by itself and the stuff we need to eat to grow, to keep living, to stay healthy. There's a lot of protein in meats, particularly white meat or oily fish, beans, nuts, eggs, tofu, all of those things contain a lot of protein. And there's no fat, really, in a potato. There's no kind of oily, that sort of stuff. So that makes them healthy unless you cook them in lots of oil, which is the fat.
And that's what we usually do. We deep fry potatoes and make French fries. Or, you know, over there, if you speak French, it's pommes frites. If you see that word, you know they're French fries. But, yeah, we add a lot of fat to potatoes. But if you just leave them alone and cook them...
Boiled potatoes
they're actually pretty good for you.
Absolutely fine.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it also says here, Toby lets us know he's great or his family is great at satisfying hunger. That's important. It kind of keeps you full longer if you have a potato rather than, say, a salad. Salads go, you know, they go through you quickly. They don't really make you full for very long. But that good old potato, even without adding lots of butter and fat, can make you feel like, oh, I feel good. I feel satisfied. So you eat less, perhaps. So try that. Satisfying just makes you happy. And satisfying, at least when we're talking about our stomachs, just means we feel full. We're not constantly looking to, you know, grab something else to eat because we've been satisfied. Our hunger is satisfied.
Yeah, and that's kind of handy because you might eat fewer potatoes to feel full than eating other crops or bread or rice or stuff like that. And that's, you know, good for you in terms of keeping the weight off, but it's also good for populations because fewer potatoes feed more people than if you're growing rice or wheat or other things like that.
It's true.
It's kind of important later. And Toby finishes by saying what makes us so appealing as a food crop is that we're relatively easy to grow and can adapt well to a variety of climates. If something is appealing, it's attractive in some way, it's very good, it's very useful, people want to use it. And relatively easy, we use the adverb relatively when we're making an implied comparison with something. We're not saying exactly what we're comparing it with. So we're saying potatoes are relatively easy to grow and implied with other crops. So they take less effort to grow, maybe less water, less attention than other things like barley, wheat, rice, soybeans, and so on.
Yeah, think about rice. It requires so much water. In a lot of countries or states, at least in America, we don't have enough water for rice. So it is relatively easy when compared with other kind of staple crops. And if you can adapt well to something, you're in an area that you can change and modify yourself so you're happier somewhere, or you're just surviving better, you're actually thriving sometimes. And they adapt well to a variety of climates. Think of the potato. They grow underneath the ground. So they're kind of protected from a lot of things until it's time to harvest them and take them out of the ground. So it makes sense that they can adapt to a different kind of climate. There's just not one place that they grow well in.
Yeah, more water, more heat, less heat, whatever kind of soil, they're generally okay. And once the Europeans realized this, my predecessors were ready for the big time.
Cool.
Predecessor is another sort of similar word to ancestors and forebears. It means the person or the thing that has come before you.
Yeah.
So if you're in a job and somebody else had that job before you, they would be your predecessor.
Yeah, look at the word here. You can see precede in there. If you precede someone else, you come before them. So, yeah, predecessor isn't just a family member. It could be someone who had your position or job before you. Right now, guys, it's pretty much time to wrap this puppy up. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher one more time.
接着我们来看到第3段，这里提到呢，当马铃薯到欧洲的时候，刚开始欧洲人完全不想吃马铃薯。后面的句子提到 This makes sense since our leaves are toxic, as is our skin if it's exposed to light. 在这里的 make sense 就是指合理的意思。因为为什么大家不吃马铃薯呢？因为呢，它们的叶子是 toxic， 也就是有毒的，而且呢，如果它的表皮接触到太阳光线的话，也一样会有毒。在这里 be exposed to常用被动的方式来表达接触到或是暴露于怎么样的意思。 Expose 本来当作动词是有使接触到的意思，譬如说 expose children to violence on TV 就代表让儿童去接触到电视节目的暴力。那么以前是这样子，后面的句子继续说They used my relatives to decorate their gardens instead, but it wasn't long before they recognized their virtues as a food. 那么因为他们觉得叶子有毒，表皮接触到光线也会产生毒素，所以就干脆呢使用这些马铃薯的亲戚们来装饰他们的花园。这里的 relative 就是有亲戚、亲属的意思。但是很快的呢，他们就认得也意识到 recognize 他们呢其实当作食物是有很多的 virtue， 在这里的 virtue 本来是有美德的意思，延伸出来就是优点的意思。最后一段提到马铃薯有很多的营养价值，我们来看一下倒数第2个句子。What makes us so appealing as a food crop is that we're relatively easy to grow and can adapt well to a variety of climates. 这个句子很长，那么它的主词是从 what 开始一直到 crop， 是一个名词子句当主词。主词的内容是说，让我们会这么受欢迎，成为一个主要的粮食作物，就在于 is 才是它真正的动词，就在于马铃薯呢是比较容易种植，而且可以在各种气候下适应良好。在这里的 adapt 就是有适应的意思。OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
All right, well, that is the end of part 1 of our article, but it's not the end of the potato's tale. Toby finished by saying that his potato predecessors were ready for the big time. So
Right.
they've kind of shown South America what they can do and help the Incas. They're just getting eaten in Europe, and they're about to, their properties, their virtues are going to change European history. But we'll have to wait till day 2 to find out about that. So right now, it is time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for joining us. Come back for day 2 of our potato unit. It's kind of fun, I would say. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Pat.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.